Everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here with our Queen Sugar recap and review. So in this episode, we're still dealing with the time frame of how much time has passed, because we know that in the first episode that Prosper was hit by the police officer, right? Knocked to the ground, taken to the hospital. He was in a medically induced coma. And then we learned in the second episode that the medically induced coma wasn't working. They were going to try this hypothermia technique. And then at the end of the episode, Prosper was up and walking around. And so in this episode, Prosper is coming home from the hospital. And the reason this is all so confusing is because in reality, all of this with Prosper would have taken place over probably 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even a month, from the time he sustained his trauma to the time that he would be coming home from the hospital. However, everybody else in the episode, their time frame seems to be within a matter of days. And so that's why some of us are so confused as to what's going on. So the episode begins with Prosper being welcomed home by the Bordelons and his daughter, Billy. And so while Prosper is greeted by Aunt Vi, Hollywood, and Nova, Billy is consoled by Charlie because Billy's feeling some kind of way. Her dad walks into the house, and then the Bordelons are just embracing him and, covering him in love. And so she's kind of standing off, like, sort of like she was the home health aide that brought him home or something. So she's standing off, and Charlie goes over and tries to talk to her and let her know that, she has a second chance with her dad, and she should take advantage of that and don't harbor any ill will feelings. And so as Charlie and Billy are talking, Nova runs over and she sits next to Prosper, after Aunt Vi and Hollywood have left. And so this to me was a foretelling that there would be a clash of some sort between Nova and Billy. And we do get that clash at the end of the episode, and we'll talk about that later. And so later on, Aunt Vi, she's packing away food at the diner. And I was sitting there like, Aunt Vi must be got a PPP loan and a EIDL loan from the Small Business Administration, because she is just giving away food. And you guys know from the first episode, she put these signs up, pay what you can. And then even when people were trying to pay the regular price, Aunt Vi was like, oh, no, you don't have to do that. Just pay what you can. I know it's hard times for everybody. And I'm like, well, Aunt Vi, where is you getting all this money from that you just cooking up a storm? You got your staff in there working, and you got all these fancy boxes and stuff that you're delivering your pies and all this. Like, where is all this money coming from? And I don't think that that's what you were supposed to have been doing with the PPP loans and all of that, if that is indeed where she's getting the money from. So Hollywood came by, asking about a large box or something. I think it was some food that he was supposed to be taking to the Real for his grand opening. And Aunt Vi is packing up, some more food, right? And so she kind of like brushes Hollywood off, because she's always so busy. What she's doing is always so much more important than everybody else. So Hollywood goes into the back, and then as he goes into the back, Aunt Vi runs over to the register. She pulls the money out of the register, just in time for Hollywood to kind of like step back and watch what she's doing. And he sees her put this wad of money into the box of food that she was getting ready to take out. And so then we had a scene with Ralph Angel, and he is talking to a lawyer of some sort. And so he finds out that the farmers, it's going to be a delay in getting the money from the farm for the farmers in this lawsuit that they have filed. And then we'll talk about that also. So Charlie, Billy, and Nova, they are all at this community meeting. And at first I was kind of confused as to what was going on with the community meeting. But actually it was at the city council, because I was like, okay, is this a city council meeting? If this is a meeting of the Alliance of Black Farmers? But, you know, we have to put the pieces together because they're rushing through these scenes so fast. And so they were at the city council meeting. And I'm not sure if the city council was leading the meeting or if they were just using the council chambers. Like, really confused what was going on. But the lawyer gets up and he's basically telling them that, oh, before we get to the lawyer speaking, Charlie, Billy, and Nova, they're standing out in the hallway talking. And then the sheriff comes up. And they're like, okay, well, what are you doing here? This is supposed to be for the Black Farmers Alliance to speak with the representative. And he was like, oh, you know, trying to make it into a racial thing. Like, you know, he's been getting phone calls from the white farmers and they're wondering why they've been excluded from this meeting. And he, you know, was like, well, I can come in, can't I? And so they're looking at him like, well, yeah, you can come in. And then, of course, when we get into the meeting, that's when we realize it is the council chambers. And then there are other white farmers that are in there also. And so, you know, pulling the whole reverse racial discrimination, like it's okay when they're excluding Black people, but heaven forbid Black people exclude them from anything. And so after a short, you know, back and forth, you know, it was understood that he most definitely could come into the meeting, that it was not a private meeting that was excluding anybody, although they were there to talk about the settlement for the Black farmers. So then we learned that Billy was there. I believe Prosper asked her to be there because evidently Billy has real estate experience. She may, you know, have a position in Chicago, you know, where she's like a big real estate agent or a litigant or something like that. And I believe they said Prosper recommended that she come. And so as Nova and Charlie were talking about Billy before she walked up, Ralph Angel basically dismissed their concerns. Or I think Billy came by and went into the room. I'm sorry. Billy came up. She went into the chambers or wherever they were having this meeting. And then Nova was saying, oh, well, you know, you can't trust her. You know, why is she here? And then Ralph Angel dismissed their concerns and was basically like, he's not getting involved in their pettiness and they really need to deal with whatever the issue is that they're having. So then we have a scene where Hollywood, I told you guys, he caught Aunt Vi taking this money out of the register at the restaurant. And so he confronts her in the parking lot as she's putting the food in the trunk of her car. And then, of course, you know, she is, first of all, like, you know, why are you watching me? You know, it's my business. But anyway, she takes Hollywood to the motel, you know, basically lets him know about Celine and Gabriel, the people that she's helping. Celine is being physically abused by her husband, and she ran away with her son, Gabriel. So, of course, when they get to the door, Celine is like really nervous, like, why did you bring him here? You know, I thought this was our secret. And we still don't know where Aunt Vi met this woman at. Like, what is the connection? What is the relationship? And who is the man? Like, are we going to find out that Jimmy Earl is the man that's beating this woman? Celine is so random, as with many of the storylines that we get on Queen Sugar. Like, they just come out of the blue. And it's like they try to tackle so many issues, so many social issues, that they lose track of what the storyline really is supposed to be about. But it looks like from the previews, we will eventually get back to the Landrys trying to take the land of the farmers and that type of stuff, and this battle over land in St. Joe. Like, we might get to that. Probably, you figure this is episode 3. These seasons are usually 10 episodes. So maybe within the next 2 episodes, we'll get back to the original issue. So, Celine tells Aunt Vi about, okay, so we know it ain't Jimmy Earl because the husband name is Greg, I forget. So she tells how he abused her and how it got worse during the pandemic. And we know that domestic violence was a big issue during the pandemic because, like, a lot of women were free during the day from the violence because either they had jobs or their husbands had jobs. But with the pandemic, they were stuck in the house with their abusers, and it was a lot of stories, a lot of statistics out about how bad the domestic violence got. Suicide rates were up for students who could no longer go to school. So a lot was going on, and they are putting this into the episode. And so she said that she wasn't okay with the abuse, but she wasn't willing to leave. But it was when her husband started abusing Gabriel that she drew the line. And so, you know, Aunt Vi told Celine that she's safe and will get through all of this. And I just, you know, once again, the statistics are out there. Why not love yourself enough to get out of a domestic violence situation? Why do you have to wait for your child to be physically harmed? Because believe it or not, your child knows that you are being abused. They hear the yelling, they hear the fighting. So they're already scarred, they're already hurt. So why drag it out until the physical abuse actually becomes a part of the equation for the child? And we know that there are many, many organizations out there to help women in domestic violence situations. And too often the biggest chains that hold us bound are the chains in our mind that the worst is going to happen if we take a stand for ourselves. So then Aunt Vi and Hollywood leave the motel where they're staying at, where the mother and son are staying at. And so then they argue over Aunt Vi not telling Hollywood. And remember I said in last week's video, like, why is it a big secret? Why wouldn't you tell Hollywood what is going on? Because what happens if the husband finds out where she is, Aunt Vi is there, and then Aunt Vi ends up getting hurt or getting killed? So I didn't understand why she didn't tell Hollywood in the beginning, but then we realized it was for selfish reasons. Okay, like, I think I just don't understand Aunt Vi. I don't, you know, but she turned the tables on Hollywood, and she blames him from keeping secrets. She blamed him for keeping the secret, saying that he told her that she worries about everyone but herself. So remember last season towards the end where he was telling Aunt Vi, stay out of other people's business and worry about yourself. So I guess this was her response to that, was that she was going to keep this secret and not tell him, because then he'll be complaining that it's one more thing to worry about. And then she started talking about, you know, he created the real for everyone else, so he can care for everyone else, but he's mad that she's caring for people. And so just typical Vi. And you know, this is definitely seemed to be a setup for something that's going to go down with Aunt Vi in Hollywood. So we go back to the meeting at City Council, and Ralph Angel and the Black farmers are speaking up and speaking out about their funding, like when are we going to get our money. However, the white farmers from the county proclaimed that the settlements for the black farmers are unfairly targeting the black farmers and not the white ones. Like, did they miss the part that it was for the black farmers? That the lawsuit was for black farmers who had been cut out of previous lawsuits and previous funding. It's like nobody's home, okay? There's a light on, but nobody's home, okay? So things get really tense when the representative who came, and I guess he would have been from like the USDA administration with the government, and he tells them that it is going to take another 6 weeks before they'll reach back out. So they have no clue when they are going to get this money. And Ralph Angel is like, hold on, like, we are in debt. Our crops aren't as good. We got to get the crops out of the ground. We've already missed harvest season last year. We are stuck, like, we need help. And then the guy was just like, well, ain't nothing we can do about it. So then Billy speaks up and says that precedence has already been set for the lawsuit, that they've already paid out other farmers, from lawsuits that have been filed. And so that they need to pay the black farmers and pay them now, or they're going to end up in court. And so Charlie was sitting, up on the podium with the other council members, and the look on her face when Billy got up and spoke was like, hold up, that was supposed to be my line. Like, I was the one that was supposed to come in with the cavalry and save them and speak up and give the point speech about how I'm going to force the government into doing this. And so Billy beat her to the punch, okay? So then I wonder if budget cuts, because the actress who plays Tegan, Mia, I can't think of her last name, but she was on How to Get Away with Murder. So she started out, like, I was first introduced to her on Underground, the show Underground, where she played, I think her name was Ernestine, and she was on the Killing Them Slave Masters. But she was on there. Then she went on to be on How to Get Away with Murder. And I be calling her Tegan was her name on How to Get Away with Murder. Parker is her name on Queen Sugar. So I'm thinking when she went to How to Get Away with Murder, she probably received a big pay increase. So then they had her over on Queen Sugar. And I'm thinking once COVID set in, I told you guys the ratings are tanking, that maybe they couldn't afford to pay her what they were supposed to be paying her, because, most actors and actresses are paid per episode. It's not like, oh, you're going to get $1 million for this season. It's no, you get X amount of dollars for the number of episodes that you're in. And so I think I mentioned this in the last video, like maybe Billy is cheaper than Parker. I even have it wrote down here, y'all, Tegan. Parker, okay? So maybe that's why we have this tension between Charlie and Billy, and then maybe Parker will come back later, or Parker may never come back, because we ain't heard from Parker since she took her overnight bag to New York last season. So this also reminded me of an article that I read where it was talking about, where the person who wrote the article was saying that they felt that they are whitewashing Queen Sugar. So like when Queen Sugar first came out, everybody fell in love with the series because it had all these beautiful black melanated people on it. And there was somebody that everybody could relate to. So what this writer was saying was that he felt like they're whitewashing the cast. And so from becoming like a lighter complexion, and maybe this is something that they hope would draw in diverse audiences to the show. And it mentioned how Micah's girlfriend, remember, I really need to start writing these names down, because like out of sight, out of mind. But remember, Micah's girlfriend from the beginning was this really Kiki, this really dark-skinned girl, right? And now we have him with the light-skinned professor. You know, him and Kiki broke up last season, and now he's sleeping with the professor, who's very, very light complexion. And then Micah's friends from, you know, when he was in high school, they were mostly darker-skinned boys, and then they had the one light-skinned girl. And they got in trouble. One of them went to jail, that type, like the stereotypical story about the dark-skinned black kid, right? But now that he's in college, we see that his friends in college are of the lighter complexion. And then the boy who's like been featured in all the episodes helping Michael with his anxiety, he is a very light-skinned boy. And then they prosper. That's another thing. So we know Charlie is very fair-skinned because Ernest had an affair or was married to, or whatever the relationship was with Charlie's mom. Charlie's mom is a white woman. So now here we have Billy coming in, and she looked like she's very light, could be biracial or just a very light-skinned black woman. So it's like, okay, what did Prosper's wife look like that they produced this light child? And so I could kind of see, like, I wasn't really focused on it before I read that article, but after reading the article, I am like saying, okay, all right, I see what's going on. You know, we had Ralph Angel dating the district attorney, or the woman that worked, she was an attorney in the district attorney's office. And she was a very dark-skinned woman, and we were all like, all right, Ralph Angel. And then they got rid of her and made him and Darla get back together. So and colorism has really been a big part of Queen Sugar from the beginning, because I can remember talking about this in season 1 and season 2 about how, you know, Ralph Angel he was dating the Asian chick, taking her out on dates and, you know, opening the door for her. But then he would hook up with dark-skinned women in the backseat of the car while Blue was in the house sleeping. So that type of stuff has been going on from the beginning. And so this writer was saying that it's becoming more and more prominent as the seasons go on. So then we have a scene where Micah was walking down the street near campus when he gets a call from Charlie, and Charlie reminds Micah that they are having dinner at Aunt Vi's, that Davis is there, and they, you know, basically are going to let the family know that they are getting back together. And Micah was really short with his answer. And they, you know, Davis and Charlie was sitting there thinking that he was going to be all excited. But then Micah was like, I just don't want you to get hurt, Mom. You know, I want you to be happy. I'm glad you and Dad are getting back together. I just don't want you to get hurt again. And then Davis had this look like, oh, damn. So they kind of talked it through, and, you know, Micah's going to be okay. Like, he's not mad that they're getting back together. He's just concerned about Charlie. And so Charlie says that, you know, they don't believe that anyone would be against her and Davis getting back together. You know, that they, you know, just got to work things through and just give everybody time. So then we have a scene with Nova when she runs into her neighbors, and, you know, they're in a really good mood. And I really couldn't tell, because I thought when Nova was talking to Dominic, and he said that she was at the house or something, and the Loretta lady was in the yard. I thought Loretta was a dark-skinned woman, the way she looked from, you know, the angle. But they, you know, were walking down the street, and she turned out to be a very fair-skinned woman. Like, she might even be white. She might not. Well, we are in Louisiana because we do have Creole. So maybe she's a Creole woman, because they're mixed women. And so they're walking down the street, but we know that Dominique said that Loretta is his sister. So I wasn't sure if Loretta was the lady that was kneeling in the yard, that's the sister, or if she was somebody different, because Nova didn't say, oh, hey, Loretta and Dominic. She said something like, hey, y'all. Okay. So then it also made me think about the fact that when the first time we saw Nova's house on this show, she was like in an area where there were no other houses, right? It was just Nova's house. And so we, you know, shucked it off as, okay, this was post Katrina, and maybe all the houses around Nova had been demolished, and people had moved out or they hadn't returned back to the city, right? Just making up excuses for some of this stuff. So now all of a sudden, Nova's house is on this street. It has a sidewalk. Then across the street, we can tell that is either they're blurring out what's across the street, or it's actually like a fake image that they've dropped in. It's sort of like a green screen type image that they've dropped in that's really blurry. And so it just, something wasn't working for me. But anyway, we've never seen people walking up and down Nova Street before. It's usually at nighttime. Somebody pulls up and gets out the car and runs up the steps. So this is a big difference with that. Just one of those quirky things that I noticed. But after they have their exchange where Dominic says that, what were they talking about? Nova was on TV. She did an interview with Tawana Burke, and you guys know she is the Black lady who let the Me Too movement infiltrate her movement that she had going on. And so now, to me, she's really not really relevant anymore. I mean, because I think once you let them whitewash your mission, then you don't really matter anymore. But anyway, they're talking about that interview, and then Nova tells Dominic that he needs to go down to the Real and have a discussion with them. And so they just a friendly conversation with neighbors passing by. So they go on. But when Nova had walked out of the house, there was an envelope laying on the stoop. And so she picked up the envelope as they were coming up. She opens the envelope, and it is a picture of her with a bullseye on it. And so, of course, she's panicking. Remember, in last episode, she felt that her phones were being tapped. And so she balls up the picture and she runs out the yard, and she's kind of like looking to see if anybody is watching her. And then I guess that's why they had to change the scenery of the house, because before she was out there and there was nobody, there were no neighbors. And now she needs to have neighbors. She needs to have this full-blown street where people could be riding by, back and forth and stuff like that. And I also noticed, I think last season when Calvin moved in, that was when I first noticed that, oh, Nova got neighbors. Like before we never saw neighbors, everything was just zoomed in on Nova's house. So then they're at the dinner. It's the night of the dinner, and they're getting ready, setting the tables and everything. And so they're having a discussion about Davis and how surprised they are that he and Charlie are back together. And Charlie must have been in the other room, and it was like Nova, Aunt Vi, and Ralph Angel and Darla were in the kitchen, getting the food ready to bring it out. And so Darla asks, like, to cut the conversation before something bad was said. Darla interjects and asks what type of person was David, because she only knew him after the fact. Like, she didn't know Davis when he was this person that the whole family loved. And so before Aunt Vi can answer, Hollywood walks in and he speaks up and he says, how happy he is that Davis and Charlie are back together. And I was like, me too, Hollywood, because that's the only reason I'm still watching this show, was to see if Charlie was going to get back with Davis. So then Micah and Davis finally arrive, and by now they're in the dining room and they're setting the table, and Charlie is in there setting the table. And so Davis is greeted by Ralph Angel and Hollywood. Like, they're making sure that this is not a bad evening, that things are going to remain positive and uplifting. And so, everybody have their exchanges, and then Aunt Vi, Davis has some flowers for Aunt Vi. So she walks up, acting like she's not happy, like she's still skeptical about what's going on. And Davis gave her the flowers. And at that point, she really couldn't say anything. So then during dinner, Davis, he apologizes to the entire family about his behavior and how he hurt the family, and how growing up he didn't have a family. And so they were like his family. And so he knew how much he had hurt them. And so the apology seemed to have went over well after, Aunt Vi chastises Micah. So I was just like, Michael went to reach for the food, and I was looking at him, and I knew it was coming. Like, boy, I know good and well, you ain't getting to stick your hand in my food, and we haven't said grace, okay? So then Hollywood was charged with saying the grace, and Ralph Angel called him Dr. Reverend Hollywood, because it really wasn't a blessing, it was a prayer, and he was basically praying for family, praying for togetherness, and leaving the pain in the past, and asking God to guide them to a better future, more togetherness, that type of thing. And then he blessed the food, so that was really nice. So then it's the next day, and the real spot is finally open, and Aunt Vi is dropping off the food and drinks for the event. And then when she leaves, Ralph Angel introduces Hollywood to a friend of his named Theo. And we learned that Ralph Angel met this guy while he was in prison. And so during the event, Hollywood gets the men in attendance to speak up, just talk about things that's bothering them, that's on their mind. And then they had Prosper on FaceTime because, of course, he can't be out and about because still COVID going on. So then we go over to Aunt Vi, and so her and all the women are having a girls' night out, and so Billy wasn't there. It was just the Bordelones and Darla. Well, Darla is a Bordelone now, so because her and Ralph Angel are married. So it was just the Bordelone women having a girls' night out, and then Aunt Vi, being negative Betty once again, is telling them that she doubts that Hollywood will be able to get the men to open up and talk about their problems. And I guess she's saying that his idea, because remember he has that one room called the war room where he wants men to come and work things out instead of, fighting with each other, becoming violent. Come there, hash out your differences with other men who can be like mediators to them. So Aunt Vi was kind of downing that idea. So then Nova asks Charlie if her political folks know about her and Davis getting back together, and that because they're both public figures, that their relationship could draw attention. And so while she's what was I getting ready to say there? Oh, so while they're talking, Charlie was basically saying she didn't think it was going to be a problem. And then Darla brings up that she has this really bad feeling that something is coming on the horizon, and she doesn't know what it is. And then Aunt Vi tells her, everything is going to be all right. But she was just like, she just feels that something is about to happen. And she didn't really know exactly what it is. But girl, we about to tell you, your husband about to go to jail. That's what the bad thing that's about to happen. And so it was at that moment when Hollywood met Gabriel, and he talks about, let's see. Oh, so back over at the real spot, Hollywood talks about meeting Gabriel, and then he tells them about coming across his mom's hat. Remember, he was sitting in the room with that hat a couple of episodes ago, and he was having this make-believe conversation with his mom. And then he tells them about when he was little, they had went on this shopping trip, and that they were in the department store, and the white woman had told his mom that she couldn't try on the hat. And so he was talking about how that made him feel, as a kid. And so the men were really in tune. So basically, Aunt Vi, the men are opening up, and they are willing to share stories with each other and be honest about their feelings. And so, he said that the woman, the white woman in the store, they were nothing, but his mom was everything to him, and now he's lost his mom. And so then things get really interesting when Nova brings up back over at the house, Billy, and how she caused plenty of damage for her and Aunt Vi. And that I think Darla says that, it's interesting that they have this tension with Billy, because whenever Ralph Angel talks about Billy, he always has these fond memories and talk positive about her. And so then Charlie asks, what happened between Billy and Nova? Like, what was the breakup? And then Aunt Vi lets them know that Billy slept with Jimmy Dale while they were married. Jimmy Dale, who was whipping her behind, she should have been happy somebody else was sleeping with him. But she says that Billy slept with Jimmy Dale and that is why she is mad. And everybody was looking like, oh, damn, And so then Nova says that some things and some people should remain in the past. And she had a lot of nerve saying that, in my opinion, considering she wrote a whole book telling everybody's past, telling everybody's business, stuff that should have been left in the past. Darla being a drug addict and found in a crack house should have been left in the past. What went on between Charlie and Davis and her trying to cover up the story about the Molina lady should have been left in the past. Jimmy Dale should have been left in the past, Nova, just in case you didn't know that. Okay, so then we go on, and the event at the real spot is winding down, and Theo tells Ralph Angel, they're walking outside, and he tells Ralph Angel about a job involving driving a truck full of stolen computer equipment from Landry Enterprises. I guess they were clearing out something, and there was all these computers that they came across, and they took the computer. I think they were supposed to haul the stuff away, but then they realized what it was, and now they're going to sell it. Child, I didn't understand what the scheme was. And so Ralph Angel says, no, I'm married, got a baby on the way, ain't got time to be going back to jail. But before Theo leaves, he gives Ralph Angel a $100 bill and says that it is a gift for the baby. So nothing like enticing a broke person than handing them a $100 bill and letting them know that there's more where they came from. So, child, and the next day, Darla and Ralph Angel, they had an interview with a doula. And so they really liked the lady. It seemed to have been, good camaraderie going on until that lady told them they needed to find a midwife. And they thought that the doula and the midwife were one in the same. And the lady was like, no, we have different roles. And she could tell that they were having monetary issues. And she just kind of cut the conversation off and said, you know what? I'll go and find you a midwife. So she's probably going to find somebody who's really inexpensive to help them out. And then when she leaves, Ralph Angel tells Darla that they will give the birth, that they're going to have the birth that Darla wants, and that he's going to figure out how to afford it. And then Darla said that they should just ask for help. They should go to Charlie and ask for help, because I don't know who else they can ask for help, who has that kind of money. But Ralph Angel, with his pride, tells her not to give up on him, that he's going to work it out. And she says that they have maxed out their payday loans, that they done took it. I'm like, child, you couldn't have been getting no more than $500 on them payday loans. And it ain't like you can't max out payday loans. It's like you get the payday loan and you have to pay that loan back in order to get another one, right? Unless they do things different in different places. And then most states have a minimum of like $500 that you can get on the payday loan. So maybe Darla was getting payday loans in her name, and Ralph Angel was getting payday loans in his name. But at the end of the day, I had two questions. One, why did Ralph Angel quit his job at that nursing home, knowing that he had a wife and child to take care of, and now he got a whole nother baby? But he done quit that job thinking he was going to get that government money, and he ain't got it, okay? And then Darla. In last season, somebody contracted COVID. Her company was supposed to close for like 2 or 3 weeks until the whole COVID thing, I guess the person they tested, cleaned the offices or whatever. Did the office never open back up? Because obviously 7 or 8 months have passed since then. So what happened to the office? And I'm sure Darla might have mentioned it in the first episode, but I missed it. But seems like Darla should be back at work by now. And if Darla company did not bring them back, what happened to the federal unemployment where people was getting $600 a week plus the regular state unemployment plus the additional unemployment that was supposed to bring some states up to, I guess, like the national average or something. Because I know here in Florida, people got, like, Florida is one of the places that has the lowest unemployment. I think it's like $100 and some a week that people in Florida get for unemployment in a regular situation. I think it was $275 every 2 weeks is what it pays in Florida. So to bring up, I guess, to the national average, the government was paying an extra $125 a week plus the extra $600 a week. So Dollar should have been getting at least like $3,000 for her job going away per month. Like, what happened to that money? Why are we not talking about that? But anyway, we go over to the college campus, and Micah walking down the hallway, security guard runs by, telling somebody to stop. Micah goes into a full-blown panic attack, and thank God his friend was there with him. And so he tells him, you're having a panic attack, you need to breathe, you need to calm down. There were a couple of other students in the background, like, trying to figure out what's wrong with him. Like, what is he going through? Nobody went and got help for Micah in case he was having a heart attack or anything, but he eventually relaxes and calms down. So at the dinner, back over at the Bordelon's house. No, at the diner. I'm talking about the dinner. We already talked about the dinner. At the diner, Hollywood comes in and he sees Corinne and Gabriel in a booth. And Hollywood bonds with Gabriel, and that seems to make Aunt Vi pretty happy. And then, remember I was saying in the first episode, I was thinking maybe the person in the motel was Hollywood's ex-wife, because they were talking about the fact that she had a baby and the baby died, or she had a miscarriage. So maybe that was the foretelling of Hollywood bonding with Gabriel. And so maybe something's going to happen to Corinne, okay? And then they're going to end up taking Gabriel. I don't know, child. Just me trying to come up with some stories here. And it's just a writer review that does that. So then Nova heads over to Prosper's with some leftovers, and Billy is sitting on the porch. And Nova is so rude. Like, she walks up on the porch. She doesn't say hello to Billy. She's just like, "Is Prosper here? I have some food for him." And then I think Billy, either Prosper was asleep or he wasn't there. And so then she walks over and hands Billy the food. "Well, can you give this to him?" And then, she's going to walk away. And then Billy was like, "Okay, you being hella childish right now. Like, we grown women. Can we talk about what happened?" So, the long story short, Nova, Billy told Ernest that Nova was gay. Okay, and then I guess that upset Ernest really bad. But the reason Billy told Ernest that Nova was gay was because Jimmy Dale actually sexually assaulted Billy. And then he ran around town telling everybody that he had slept with Billy and how good in bed Billy was. Now, keep in mind, Billy was a senior in high school. And so nobody wanted to hear Billy's side of the story. They just all pointed their finger at her, told her she was this dirty, nasty girl who slept with this married man that was old enough to be her father, blah, blah, blah. I'm probably not old. I think she was 18 and Jimmy Dale was 33. And so she went to see Nova, but Nova wasn't there and Ernest was there. And so she ended up telling Ernest the truth about what happened. And she said that she really believed that Ernest believed her story, but whether he believed her or not, he was kind and he was compassionate towards her and what she went through. And so then she became jealous that Prosper didn't believe her when she told him what happened. And so to have Ernest believe her, so she thought or convinced herself that Ernest had believed her, she wanted to take Ernest from Nova the way that Prosper didn't accept her, because of what happened. So that was why she told that Nova was gay and was going to hell and sleeping with other girls at the school and that type of thing. And so, the story got out. Nova couldn't believe it. She was sitting there in shock, like, what? This really happened to you. And so that's how that went down. And then the last thing that happened on the show, we had a scene with Charlie and Davis, and they're out. I don't know if they were in Charlie's backyard or they were at a park or where the hell they were at, but they were laying on the ground and staring at the stars, and a little romantic evening, celebrating the fact that Davis received an offer to be the head coach of some team called the Los Angeles Dynasty. So once again, I guess we're getting ready to leave Davis. Maybe budget constraints. David got to go back to California. And where is Davis' daughter? Can we talk about that? Because remember, Davis had accepted the job as the head coach at Baylor University. Then he found out that he had this daughter, or maybe he knew he had the daughter all along. But anyway, little girl mom passed away. So he moved back to California to take care of the little girl. He brought the little girl to meet Charlie and Micah. Then we didn't see the little girl anymore. So, and we haven't seen her, when Charlie was in California meeting with the DNC people, we didn't see the little girl. Davis done came all the way back to Louisiana. We still don't see the little girl. Now he going back to Los Angeles because he done took this job with the Dynasty. So they toast to each other's accomplishments. They talk about Charlie, possibly running for the Senate if, she's accepted by the people, and they do their background check. And so they, how are people going to react? And so at that point, Charlie is like, well, you know what, we're going to let them know. So she takes out her phone and they do a couple of little poses. She takes some selfies and she posts them to her social media. And immediately they get a positive response to the news that they're back together. And I think she said something like Black Love Wins was the hashtag that she used. And so that's how the show ended. They were, hugging and kissing and happy to be back together. So, guys, that is me. That is me. That is it for me. I did a little better. Instead of bringing this to you next week, I did get it to you today. I said I was going to try and get it by Thursday. And I'm going to keep working at getting better with bringing this recap, but it's like I've been covering another story that's been taking up a lot of my time, and so it's just been hard to fit this in. But I was covering the trial of R&B singer R. Kelly. That has gone to the jury, and so I'll have more time now to focus on doing my show recaps and figuring out what shows I want to do and what other topics I want to talk about on the channel. So go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.